And I'm here with my harp to talk to you about the fact that there is still time if you play the harp. There is still time for you to get in on the 5-day Harp Improv Challenge for 2022. So there were 5 days where people were learning stuff. There's like 15 minutes of teaching each day. And now all of those are open. So when you join, you actually get in and you can take all of those. And then you have the chance to, the biggest prize is the fact that you get to learn this. But you also, there were like prizes every day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now it's time for the grand prize. So if you've already been in the challenge and you've already submitted, your answers for day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all you have to do is the final challenge, the final day's challenge. And that one is pretty simple. There's nothing to actually even listen to. If you have only done 1 or 2 of the days, you still have a chance to go in and finish the other days and then do the grand prize, and you will be eligible for the grand prize. So if you haven't joined yet, join anyway, because now that the challenge is completely open, that means all 5 of the trainings are open there, including the handout. That means you can jump in and get this really powerful training. Why is it powerful? It's powerful because I spent 40 years of madness figuring it out. It's powerful because it is the essence of what I have spent my life figuring out about how to get out of the complexity of music, whether it's classical music or whether it's jazz or whatever, get out of the complexity and ground in the simplicity and the essence of how it works, getting a framework. And I've been really blown away by a lot of the comments that people have made about this. And in a little bit, I'll go in and I'll actually read some of those. But I just want to talk about how powerful this is. So many people feel like I can't improvise, or I've tried and I don't know how to do it. I start doing something and I do the same thing, or I get bored, or I don't know what to do. And this is because without some kind of structure, some kind of framework, something to follow, we don't even have a creative. You can't color outside the lines if there's no lines. And maybe that's fine for some people, but for me and for most people, we will get absolutely lost in the chaos of too many possibilities. And so what I did was I looked at all the different frameworks in classical music and in jazz, and I found a framework that showed up over and over and over again. I call it the 5-part arrangement form. And it allows you to take any simple tune and create a piece around it. That was the first thing. Well, actually, that was the second thing that I taught in this challenge. The first thing I taught in the challenge was a harmonic pattern that allows you to have something to improvise over. So if I just said, go in here and we just start improvising. Like, well, you can get back into the key of C here, my favorite key. Okay. No, somebody's off. You. So if I just said, okay, just start improvising. You could play any note. I could say, okay, you can play any note. All right, you can play any note, but there's kind of nothing there to play any note on. And music isn't just sound. Music has a sense of meaning. It feels like it's going somewhere. It's taking you with it. So one of the first things that I taught in this challenge was a very simple chord progression. Now, this is what jazz players do. They improvise melodically and harmonically over chord progressions. often those chord progressions are very complex. And that's part of what makes jazz really wonderful. But what I did was I gave everyone a very simple chord progression. Once your harp is in the key of C, and for those of you who don't play the harp, one of the amazing things about putting your harp in a key is that all the chords that are natural to that key, they show up. And so you can actually play by, once you get the harp set up, you can play by pattern and shape. And so that's what I taught was people this pattern. It's just a simple progression of notes. That's just what it sounds like if it's by itself. And that's how we started. That's the bass movement. Then you can add notes over it. That was just one was a little off. I can add more. I can add more. I can move it around. I could give those rhythm. We didn't do that in the challenge, but you can. You can make them very big if you want. It's a progression. It's a pattern. And when you learn it, it gives you structure. It gives you grounding. It's a pattern. And you can take shapes and put them on that pattern. Patterns and shapes. So we learned a pattern, and people played arpeggios on it, a pattern of chords. So that was the first thing that I taught, was just a pattern, a harmonic pattern, and then the shapes that you can build on it. And then I showed that that pattern can also differentiate into bass, accompaniment, and melody. And you can take the same pattern, the D, the G, the C, the A, and you can build melodies on it. I don't know if you can tell, but there's the D, the G, C, the A, the D, the G, the C. So what I did is I created fence posts out of that same pattern. Fence posts that I then put my melody on. I'm going really fast on this now, but in the 5-day challenge, I took it day by day, about 10 to 15 minutes a day. So now you have this pattern that you can improvise on, which is fine. And then on day 5, I showed you how to put that pattern into a framework so that you can combine it with any simple melody and you can create a whole arrangement. And somebody said something like, wow, for less effort than it took to learn, one tune the old way, I can create an entire repertoire, very simply create it, of tunes that are fun to play, and then I get to improvise as well. So let me just say that once again. By learning this framework and this way of playing, somebody said it better than I could, which is she said, wow, I'm seeing that with less effort than it takes to learn a single tune the old way, I can create an entire repertoire of music that I love and music that is really fun to play because you're improvising. So here's the framework. This is the framework that I found over and over again in classical, in jazz, in folk. It's very simple. It's an introduction. Now, what I'm doing is actually, this is a gesture. The introduction is a gesture. It's a gesture of taking you from silence into sound. And there's a harmonic meaning in there. So I'm doing it on the dominant by explaining all of that. It could be as simple as this. On the harp, you play the G in the bass because that's the dominant of C. And then you glissando, that could be an introduction. You could make that more complex. You could make it very complex. You could make it go on for a really long. These are all just variations on this. So this is an introduction. It takes you from silence to sound. It's an induction. It's a magical thing, I think. And so there's an induction, and then there's a melody. And we just learned Ode to Joy, a very simple part of it. So in introduction, then now you might notice that I had put some harmony on that. I showed you how to do that too, because one of the other principles of arrangement is that we have an outline, we have a bass, and we have a melody, and then we build up from the bass to create accompaniment, or we build down from the top. And one of the easiest ways to build down from the top is to put a third below your melody. Doesn't always sound great. Sometimes it sounds better to have a sixth. And notice that the melody's in my thumb. So the melody's in my thumb, and then I'm adding a harmony underneath it. And that's a very easy melody to learn because it's all scale-wise. So I can put an introduction, or I can make it more complicated, but it's just an introduction. And then I play that melody. Repeat it. Then I start that chord progression. It's D, G, C, A, D, G, C. I could do all kinds of stuff. I could do arpeggios. Or I could play the fence posts. But I don't have to learn anything more. I'm exploring that chord progression. And when I'm done exploring it, guess what? I come back to the melody. And I add an ending. Just by repeating the last part. And that gently lets people out of the song. So there's an induction in, and then we let them out at the end. And so this framework is bring them in, play a melody, maybe a melody we know, maybe a melody we've made up, but let's just say it's a melody we know. Improvise on a chord progression. It can be the chord progression that belongs to that melody, or it can be any chord progression. And I teach a lot of these chord progressions in Hip Harp Academy. This is just one of the most powerful and simple ones. And then so you explore, and then you do the melody again at the end, and then there's the ending. And it's very satisfying. It's like a story form. It's like an adventure where we're introduced to it's like the introduction is, like the camera comes in. Okay, where are we? We're coming into this village. Okay, yeah, now we're in the village. Who do we meet? We meet this person. And now that person goes off on an adventure. We can even kind of use their theme if we wanted. Or you can just explore. You can slow it down. It can be romantic. You can make the chords. And then when you're done, you keep it as simple as what works for you. Knowing that simple is beautiful. That tune's gone on an adventure, and we get to see it at the end of the adventure. We get to sit down on the stoop with our friend at the end of the day. And we take a little breath, and we think about the adventure that we had together. So there's a story, an emotional story in a sense, that creates the experience of a tune. This is what I taught in the 5-day challenge. And the reason I taught it in the 5-day challenge is that this is the framework that we are using this quarter in Hip Harp Academy. And you can find Hip Harp Academy by going to Hip Harp, which is hip as in cool, harp as in the instrument, academy.com. And if you play the harp, I really encourage you to join us this quarter, because this quarter is called Structure is Freedom. And what that means is that we take this framework and we use this framework to create a repertoire. So it's not like you come into the academy and you learn one tune or you learn one complicated thing. It is about building a repertoire. This quarter is all about building a repertoire. And I put it at this time of the year because this is the time of the year when we are often asked to play, or we want to play, tunes that we don't play in the rest of the year, like Christmas music, holiday music, playing for people for dinner. Harpists may be able to make money at this time of year more easily than they do at other times of year because there are parties and there are dinners. And so being able to have this skill of not having to painstakingly learn something, but understanding how music works, that there is a melody. The melody is the familiar, connection to people. And then there's the improvisation, the spinning out, the part there where you get to have fun on the job. And then there's the introduction where you get to create an atmosphere, where you get to create the scene. Having this, I'm just getting a little embarrassed for a minute, just because it's so much fun. It is so much fun to be able to play music this way, to be able to make choices and to be able to connect with people. And that is true whether you are playing background music, whether you are playing a bossa nova, or whether you're playing therapeutic music for people who are in need of calm, or in people who are in need of connection, or people even in hospice. That this structure, this framework, is not about a style. We're usually hearing music with style first. It's kind of like seeing people by the clothes that they've decided to adorn themselves in and thinking that those clothes are who the person is. Hello, that's something I should turn off. Let me turn that off for a second here. Then I always forget to turn it back on. Being able to get down to the framework outside of the style opens up. It's like, it's in a sense, oh God, there's so many metaphors. One is like having a seed, but a seed that just keeps creating over and over and over again. Another is like having a recipe. A recipe for, let's say, a recipe for cake. And you can make that cake look any style. You can make that cake, you can put different things in it, but a recipe for cake gives you the power and the freedom to be able to improvise on what that cake looks like, and who it's for, and how it's decorated, and all of that. But first you have to learn how to make the cake. And that's what you're basically learning. That's what we learned in the 5-day challenge, and that's what you're learning in Hip Harp Academy this quarter. And I call it Structure is Freedom, because once you understand those structures, they ground you, and once you're grounded, you can start flying. So the thing that I keep seeing over and over and over again that people are saying in the challenge is, whoa, this made me realize that simplicity is powerful. That's where we can ground. That's where we can become connected and fluent in the simplicity. Once we're grounded, once that clicks, then it can expand and expand and expand. So I'm just going to show you this structure again. And you know what I just realized? I keep forgetting that I actually can see the chat here. So, and I think this is streaming on a couple different platforms. Betty says my favorite feature of the harp. Oh, great. And Betty's saying great overview and remembrance of the things we worked on this week. Yeah, so here's the thing. This framework, we worked on it in the 5-day challenge. And if you haven't signed up for the 5-day challenge, go jump in now. If you like to get prizes, there's still a chance to get the grand prize. And that grand prize is a one-on-one coaching session with me where you get to work on anything you want to, plus a shopping spree in my digital catalog and a hand-drawn badge. I love drawing badges for you. So it's the personal, it's the musical, and it's also getting my eyes on what it is that you want to do with your life as a musician, because that is what I love to facilitate. And I do that in the academy through coaching, and I do it through training, and I do it through giving you what I wanted to have when I was first starting music, which was an understanding of how does this work? How can I do this simply without having to like learn all this stuff? So let me show you a couple more examples. Let's take another song. I'm always taking Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star because it's such a great song. But let's take a Mozart song. This is harder. Okay, we'll say that that's going to be our song. I don't always do this with classical music, but let's just say it is. So, and there's so many fun things. I'm starting to think about other things that you can do with it, but we'll just take the form. So let's say we're going to do an introduction again. In this case, I'm putting that dominant in the bass because that's the foundational thing. That's the important thing here is that there's a G in the bass. What I'm doing up here could be many different things. It could be a glissando. It could be an arpeggio. It could be an arpeggio with a little more harmony. It could be an arpeggio with altered chords. Or I could take part of that melody that I'm about to play And with the G in the bass, so what I did there, I could do that again. You could do that. It was really fun. I took the first part of the melody. This is something I didn't teach in the challenge, but it's just another variant. This is what happens in the academy. We take those basic foundations, those basic framework, and then we start expanding and showing all the possibilities, because the possibilities of each part are infinite. No joke. You could spend your life just working with this framework and make a living and create music and never feel that you were missing anything. However, there are also other frameworks, but that's for next quarter. Anyway, so down here we've got our G. I took a little part of the melody. Then I moved it up a step, up another step, so what really changed there, I mean, I played this, but when I put the G in the bass, it sounds like I'm not where I want to be yet. Then I move the melody around, and I made it a little faster. And now I'm ready to play the melody. This is when I put the root, the C in the bass. Okay, so that is a variant of, and one of the things I really, well, I mean, it's true of all music, that once you understand the basic gesture, and these are this is a gesture. An introduction is a gesture. Once you understand the basic gesture, that is, we are setting the atmosphere. We are creating the world of the tune. We are bringing people into it. We're bringing them from the world of talking and other sounds into the world of music. The gesture can be like that, or it can be like that. I mean, depending on what kind of introduction you want, it can be like this. It can be like this, etc., 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 etc. It could go on and on and on. It could be like this. So the introduction itself is a beautiful place to improvise. You can just have that one chord there, and you can play around with just different. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like planting a different garden, but that garden grows really quickly. This is like a garden of like trumpet vines, and this is like a garden of little delicate. And what I was doing there was not thinking, what are the notes that I want to play? I was not thinking about the notes I want to play. I was not looking at the notes that I wanted to play. I was using shapes, and those shapes were then pulling me. So what I was thinking was G in the bass, and then thirds going down with some kind of melody over it. And maybe I don't like exactly the note that I ended on, but I don't obsess over it. It's a gesture. That's just one gesture. I could go on. It would be interesting to go on for an hour and just see what are all the variants I might come up with for an introduction in an hour. And they wouldn't even all have to start with that note or just be on that note, which is the G, but it is the easiest way to create an introduction for anything. So again, it's a beautiful place to improvise. You can improvise for a long time on an introduction. Oh, here's a really great introduction. So the introduction for Baroque Flamenco. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, but it's not the same thing. It's the same thing in that it's a gesture that creates a mood and it focuses on the dominant. I don't want to confuse you, but it's what's exciting to me. You can learn improvisation by learning the rules and by having to remember all the rules of what happens here and what happens there and making sure that you always sound like you're playing exactly the right note. You can do that. But that is not freedom. That's just a different kind of trying to do something perfectly. And my academy is about connection, not perfection. And it is about finding fluency and self-expression first at the technical level where you are right now. Not after you practice for 8 weeks. It's not about getting somewhere out there, because that out there is going to keep going further and further away. The challenge, the beautiful challenge of the DHC method is to be able to be present in the moment with who you are and what you have and actually value that. That creates the connection that then you can expand throughout your life. And that is the model that I teach, which is you learn the frameworks, you learn how to create the gestures, and then you have a palette, an infinite palettes, infinite paintings to paint for your life. Every time you finish one, you get a new blank slate. Every time you finish that, you get a new blank slate, and each one can be different, but you have that framework in which who you are and how you are right now is exactly what is needed to play beautifully. It is the biggest challenge is to accept who you are and how you are and what you're passionate about, that you actually can express that where you at the technical level that you have right now with the words that you have right now. And this framework allows you to do that. So let's look, are there any questions? I see that you guys are here and I see that you can see me. And that's one of the things that I really love about this platform. I don't know that everyone who can see me can actually write into the chat, but I want to know, what are your questions? What are your real, true, actual questions? Because I love real, true, actual questions. And while you're thinking about that, I want to go, so you see that there's all different kinds of, the introduction could be a place of absolute expressiveness and creativity. Then the next part is the melody. You can put any melody in there. Now, what we do in the academy to ground you is to is to, first of all, I keep everything in the key of C at first, just so you really get like, oh, I see this relates to this. I see that's the shape of this, so that you keep seeing the same things over and over again instead of being like, so that sounds just about, which, because that's kind of like how it was for me in the beginning, like, well, I don't know now I'm in this key and blah, blah, blah. And I realized that it was going to be much more grounding for me to learn in one key. And there are so many amazing things you can do in one key, like playing the modes of that key. But that's, again, for another time. So you've got your introduction, you've got any melody at any speed. You can repeat it if you want, but I'm not going to. Then you have your improv section. And one of the ways of improvising that I teach a lot is to have a chord progression. It can be the chord progression that we learned in the 5-day challenge, which is it can get more complex as you get more adept. It's not about being adept. I get that this is not in a Mozartian style, or Bach, or whoever wrote that. I'm just showing that you can improvise and you can expand with that chord progression. And then you come back to the melody again. And even if you forget the melody, it can still be beautiful and have the structure of a song. That was exactly the same form with a different tune. I could change the introduction, I could change the tune, I can change the chord progression that I use in the middle. I can change the ending. I can change any of it out. As I'm saying this to you, I'm thinking, oh, that's so interesting, because they say that about the body, that the body is, it's changing out parts of it, cells in certain parts of the body, they leave and they come back. So every 7 years or 7 days or 7 weeks or whatever it is, you have a whole new body, except it's the same. So it's slightly different in music in that you can trade out any of the parts and you get something different. And even if you don't trade out the parts, it's going to be different each time because you can improvise differently. You can have a different introduction. So this is what it means to learn from a framework. And this is what it means to be developing a repertoire from a framework. Like somebody said in the challenge, with less effort than it would take to learn to memorize a single tune, I can create an entire repertoire using this method. So it's got that, the aspect of ease to it. And I love that it also has the aspect of creative expression. That while it is simpler than memorizing written out pieces of music, it is has infinitely more creative opportunities. I mean, any piece of music has infinite creative opportunities, but they're just very easy to get to in this framework. So that's what's happening. That's the connector between what's happening in the 5-day challenge. And I just showed you the form again, that simple form, and then how you use that to create infinite repertoire. And that's what we're doing in the Academy. We're exploring what are all the, I showed you the thirds, but there's all kinds of other things that you can put underneath your melody. I showed you just a single bass note, but there's all kinds of different bass notes that you can create. So you learn the framework, and then you just start adding more and more different possibilities of things that you can do within that framework. But what's beautiful is the simple version is always there. The simple version is always beautiful, and you can always go back and reconnect and then allow it to bloom with more complexity, and then you come back when it gets too complex, and you just keep doing that. And this is how you can grow throughout your entire life with this form. And it's not like I invented the form. I mean, the form has been there. That is what jazz is about. Jazz uses this form. The sonata allegro form is this form, but in a slightly different. So it's been used for classical music. It's been used for jazz. I don't want to convince you. I'm telling you, this is the thing. All right, let me see. So Victoria says, how do you start arranging pieces for ha ha ha? Love it. Love it. How do you start arranging pieces for multiple instruments with harp and voice as the center? And Connie's saying, thank you. You're so encouraging. Connie, this works. And I see this over and over again. I see people come into the academy frustrated, either because they've been playing classical music and they feel stuck to the page, or because they started later in life and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to spend 20 years before I can do anything. No, you don't have to spend 20 years. Buying the harp is like the hardest thing. That's it. That buying the harp should be the hardest thing. The rest should be simple. In terms of having a framework, because you're not here to win contests. You are here for self-expression. And it's just a different world. And the world of learning music has been for so long about following and winning contests. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's so many more people want something different. And so many more people are playing in service of other people, whether in therapy or in other ways. And so there just needs to be a new model. And this is the model that I found as someone who is a composer as well as an improviser and a teacher. Okay, so I want to go back to what Victoria said. So Victoria, this is one of the things that I really love about learning in this style, is that once you learn about the roles in music, so we've got the structure or the framework, and we also have the roles. You learn this in the 5-day challenge. You learn it again in the academy. I'm saying it over and over again. There are 3 roles in music. There is bass, there is accompaniment, and there is melody. And you can see it. There's a geography on the harp. The bottom third is basically where the bass is. The middle section is where the accompaniment is. And the top is where melody, single notes of melody, and they each have characteristics. And I'm getting to your question here, Victoria. So once you understand these roles, and if you think about this, when you think about, you've seen jazz players who've never met before, they come to a jazz club and they all start playing together, and nobody's interrupting anybody else. Oh, I have to keep my eye on the time because I have an appointment I'm doing in a few minutes, but I'm here with you guys now. Coming back in, focusing in. So you see jazz players and you see them almost magically playing together. And the way that's happening is they are following their own pattern. They already know what the framework is. There's a standard framework in jazz, so they know the framework. Each tune has a harmonic pattern, so they know that. And then it's all about roles. And so let me take you one step further, and then it'll come back here. So if you think about team sports, like any baseball player can be traded to any team and go and play on that team, and that baseball player plays their position. That's their role. And they don't have to learn baseball all over again. They just go to the new team and they play their role in the new team. That's the power of roles. And you can do the same thing when you're arranging for harp and voice and other instruments. So when you're playing and I do this all the time. I mean, I've written many, many pieces for symphony orchestra, harp, and voice. And so it depends on which part of the piece I'm at. And this is a really interesting example because so the Nightingale is a piece that I play with symphony orchestra and also chamber ensemble. And it's got it. And in the introduction, I'm playing bass line and an accompaniment. And with the orchestra or chamber ensemble, there is a melody instrument that is playing a melody over that. So at any point, I'm very aware of who is playing melody and accompaniment and who is playing bass, who's playing bass, melody, and accompaniment. If the oboe player is playing the melody, like da da ya dum, da ya da da dum, da ya da 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 dee, then I'm just going to play bass and accompaniment. I'm not going to go over that player. The next thing that happens in that arrangement is I start singing with my harp. Who will sing for the nightingale? And at that point, what I did was I wrote the strings. I had them play accompaniment. I am also playing accompaniment. Da, da, da. This is accompaniment in here. Da, 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 da. So they don't interrupt me. They were playing, like long, slow notes. So when I'm, and then later in the middle of the tune, there's an interlude where I'm just playing, basic chords like this, and the rest of the orchestra is playing. So at every time, I'm thinking about the roles and switching to make sure that people aren't walking all over each other. So that if the oboe is playing the melody, I'm not gonna sing the melody. If I'm singing and playing, there's not going to be something that takes away from that. The accompaniment is going to add to it. Now, I know that I may be saying things and you might be saying, yeah, but how? I mean, that's what I would be saying. I would just say, join the academy. I mean, join the academy and make that your project and then ask questions about it. So one of the things that's really powerful about Hip Harp Academy is that there are people of many different technical levels, people with many different skills that they are combining with the harp and with many different goals and about what they want to do with the instrument. And because I'm teaching fundamentals, we can apply those fundamentals to whatever it is that people are doing. And you can see that. You should go to my blog, hipharp.com/blog, and you will see the final projects. We're starting to share them from last quarter. You will see how people are doing completely different things after taking exactly the same class. Because that's what we do in the academy is this is what you want to do. If you come into the academy and you're saying, okay, how do you arrange, pieces for multiple instruments with harp? And I'm like, okay, that's your project. You're going to do that. Let's do that one by one, or let's do it, 3 by 3. It doesn't matter. Sometimes I work on 3 things at once. And then we'll take those concepts, the concepts that we're learning, the form that we're learning, the ideas of the roles, and apply it. And I'm just telling you this right now, but then once you start putting it into play, that's when questions always come up, no matter what we're doing. And that's why it's so great to have a coach, because I can say, okay, Victoria, it's all about roles. If you're writing for harp and voice and other instruments, first you put in you make a score where you've got the harp and the voice. Then maybe you want to make an interlude if there's a solo instrument where you're accompanying that solo instrument. The rest of the time, everybody is there to enhance what you're doing, and they're going to do it within their role. So it depends on what instruments you had. If you said, well, I've got a cello and a flute and a viola or a French horn, I would say, okay, great. So that cello can sometimes take on the role of bass, and sometimes it can take on the role of melody. And so we would start playing with that. I know it might sound complicated, but at every moment, I'm going to be looking at the roles and how you're interacting with each other. And let me just take you back for a second. So when I first started playing jazz, my bass, this is freezing. When I first started playing jazz, my teacher and my boyfriend, same person, was a bass player. And we would be playing along, whatever we was playing, and I'd be like, and he was like, what? Stop. You're walking all over me. You're walking on, get out of the bass. I'm the bass player. You're walking all over me. And I'd be like, okay. And then I'd be like, okay, so. And at first I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not even using the whole harp. And then I finally began to realize, oh, that's his role. His role is to play the bass. I got to stay out of the bass. There's plenty to do here. And then we started playing with a guitar player, and I was all like, and the guitar player's like, hey, you're walking all over me. Get out of my space. And I'm like, oh, that's your space. And then I'm like, well, I don't have any space left. But there's plenty of space. And that's when I started realizing that I could. That I could start having fun just playing the melody. And then the bass player was like, I want to take a solo. And the guitarist is like, I got to go to the bathroom. So and then the bass player's taking a solo, and I'm playing below him, and he's playing. So we're switching roles, and I got very adept at being, okay, who's taking a solo now? Who is playing the melody role? If he's playing the melody role, I'm going to play the accompaniment role. If she's playing the bass role, I'm going to play the accompaniment and melody role. So always playing with those, jumping out of the space of the other people, unless you decide to do something, unless you're like, hey, what if we both play melody at the same time? Whatever. So I don't know if that answered your question. I got excited about it. The point is, and if you're asking for a more practical, like, how do you do this? I always started with my friends. My very first band was harp and cello. We called it harp and cello. And I just wanted to spend more time with that cellist. I really liked her, and she became my best friend. And that's why I played with her. And so, I did that my whole life. If I wanted to spend more time with somebody, I wanted to play music with them. And so that's the practical side of it. All right. So Betty said, definitely works. I can't believe the difference between my playing and connecting from last year to now. Yeah, it's really exciting to see. Okay. So I see that there are still some people here. I'm loving your questions. Victoria, I hope I answered your question. I mean, basically what I'm teaching is what I was trying to get as a child, the information I was trying to get that would have helped me to be more adept. And it was fine that I didn't get it, but because I found my own way, but I love teaching it now. And I love the freedom that I see, because I get to see people bloom every day in the academy. It's so exciting. So Connie says, I am an, let me get this out of, do not show me again. Okay, all right. I'm an older learner, so encouraging words and your videos help me to continue down this road. Great. That's great, because so many people are finding the harp later in life, and it's a gift for everybody. It's a gift for the person who plays, because playing the harp makes your brain work, and this particular way of learning especially makes your brain work. It lets your brain work. It creates more coordination, and you are also playing in service of others often. You are either playing in therapeutic situations, or you're playing for your family, or you're playing for yourself. And so, learning how to learning the framework, it just changes the whole game. Victoria says, thank you very much. What you said definitely gave me ideas to think about. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. And if you do join the Academy, and I encourage you all to join the Academy, Victoria, if you do, then when you come in, if that is your intention, if you're like, I want to be doing this, like there are people in the Academy who are like, I want to be playing for meditation. That is what I want to do. Then we take everything that we learn and make sure that there's a way to apply it within the meditative style. And that becomes really powerful for everybody, because as a community, you're learning how to do things that you wouldn't have thought to ask about. And it's always applicable to you. Oh, and the other reason, I just want to say this right now, the Academy price is vastly underpriced right now. So you should jump in, because it's going up. The price is going up $700 in the middle of October. And then it's going to go up again next year. So this is the lowest it's ever going to be. And the great thing is, once you're in, that's your price. No matter how high it goes, that's your price. So this is the perfect time to get in before October 15th, when the price goes up. And right now, because the quarter is beginning. And if you took the challenge, you're already like, you've gotten the first lesson already. Kim said, I agree so much when you say that playing the harp is a gift. I am so thankful I found it and appreciate it every day. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I think about this a lot. I think that, my hands have no sound, and the harp has no sound. There is no sound. But when my fingers touch the harp reveals the voice of my fingers, and my fingers reveal the voice of the harp. And to me, this is such a perfect analogy for partnership in life, that neither one of these, both has capabilities, but neither one is singing without being in connection with each other, without touching each other. Each is silent. This that I'm playing right now is just 2 chords. So this is what we call in the Academy a snippet. It's a little tiny bit of harmony or some kind of a gesture that allows us to sing with our souls, that it gives us a framework for that. And you'll see my left hand is bass, accompaniment and melody. Bass, accompaniment and melody. Bass, accompaniment and melody. Bass, accompaniment and melody. The accompaniments in my right hand, and the melody is in my right hand. The accompaniments in my left hand now, and my right hand is free to play. And these are just 2 chords. The first is C major 9, then F major 9, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G. And my right hand's following along, just building shapes in a way that's easy for those fingers. I never cross over. I just build melodies that are easy for me to play. So that's an example of a snippet. And each week in the Academy, we get a difference. Actually, we often get 2 of them, because there's one in the chats, and then there's a different one that I usually give in the office hours. And it's just a tiny little bit of improv idea that you can play with. So I need to keep an eye on the time here. All right. So let me just see. Kim says, I've found such joy in playing and in the group of harpists, experienced and new, who are so amazing and supportive. What a fabulous community to be a part of. Thank you, Kim. I agree. I mean, the community in Hip Harp Academy is so powerful, and this is why the learning is so rich, is that you are with people who are all challenging themselves, and they're all scared to share, and they're all, bravely stepping into parts of themselves that they've longed for and are afraid aren't right, and are all discovering. And you get to see, instead of just looking on Facebook, where like, here's an amazing thing that I did. Here's the amazing thing that my family did. Here's the amazing thing that my cat did. You get to be part of the process where people are saying, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Look, I'm trying to do that thing, but my hand is not working. So what do I do? What's missing here? What do I do? You get to be part of that process. And it's so beautiful. And we also have, there's no critique, because it is not about critiquing if you're good or bad. That's just not what it is. It's about me helping you see what you are doing, and me helping you do what you want to do, that you're like, wait, I want to do this, but I don't know the simplest way to do it. And then it's also getting to see that over and over and over again in all these different people. And you see every person who shares, I'm always asking afterwards, what did you discover? What did that person share open up for you? And that's why the Academy is so rich, is that everyone in the Academy is sharing. And so that opens up possibilities and discoveries, and like, oh, I could do that. And oh, over and over. So I just want to reinforce that. And again, jump in now. The easiest thing is just to go to hipharp.com. Hip is in cool, harp is in the instrument, and just look for where it says coaching or teaching or academy or something. Or you can go straight to Hip Harp Academy. And this is the time to join. And if you can pay in full, there's a payment plan there. So there's no reason to not do it. You want to get in now, because this is going to be the lowest price that it is ever going to be. And once you're in, you may never want to leave. So you want to get the lowest price. There are people who have been there from the beginning, and it's just amazing to watch them. Um, uh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, this is beautiful. You're right. Facebook user, I can't see who it is, says only you can decide if this style of learning is right for you. Absolutely. But if your goal is to play from your heart, this is the place to start. That is so beautiful. I want to put that on the Academy page, and I don't know who wrote it. So whoever wrote that, if you will, private message me or something, or send that, I'll give you my ask a question form. If you go to Hip Harp, I cannot post. Okay, fine. Well, it won't let me post. If you just go to hipharp.com/ask, you can send me if you would do that, I would just I'm just going to pull this up because this is so beautiful. It's just beautiful. And that's what I keep seeing over and over again in the Academy again is the beauty in what the takeaways that people have. This is really beautiful. I love this so much that I'm leaving it there. Okay, so it's time for me. Oh, Tammy, thank you. And would you be willing to also post a link to the Academy? Because I don't have this up here. All right, everybody. So if you're in the challenge, you still have a chance to win the grand prize. And if you're not in the challenge, you still have a chance to go through the training. If you are thinking about the Academy, jump into it now. This is really the best time, and I cannot wait. If you have questions about it, just use that ask a question form. If you're want to know if it's right for you, just ask me, and then you will be able to decide. This is perfect. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot wait to see all of you. And if you are in the challenge, I'm doing the final celebration tomorrow where I'm picking a bunch of winners. Well, I haven't picked the winners for day 3, 4, 5 yet. So I'm working on that. And then we'll get the winners for the grand prize. Oh, Tammy, thank you so much. So go to the Academy, check it out, ask me questions. I love questions. And I hope I will see you all in the challenge and in the Academy soon. Thank you. Thank you. And go forth and harp on the good things in life.